The vast meeting chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as the holographic displays flickered to life. Red dots appeared across the star map, each marking another dead world. In the center of the room, Council Leader Gray's silver skin had turned almost white with stress. "Another 3 worlds went dark this morning," he said, his voice trembling. "The quantum plague continues to spread, and we have no answer." Around the circular table, representatives from 50 different species shifted uncomfortably in their environment-controlled seats. Some floated in liquid chambers, others basked under special lights, but all showed signs of fear. Dr. Blue stood up from her cushioned pod, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with anxiety. As the head scientist of the council, she had spent the last 3 months studying the plague. "The pattern is becoming clear," she said, manipulating the hologram with her 4-fingered hands. "The plague targets our most advanced worlds first. It's not random. It's hunting our technology." The chamber erupted in worried whispers. Council Member Green, his plant-like appendages waving in agitation, spoke up. "How is this possible? Our best minds have found no solution. The plague adapts faster than our strongest AI can calculate." Dr. Blue took a deep breath, her skin shifting to a darker shade. "There's something else. We've tracked the origin point." She zoomed the hologram to a distant sector of space. "The plague emerged from here, the dead zone." Gasps echoed through the chamber. The dead zone was infamous, a region of space bathed in lethal radiation levels that no council species could survive. Exploration drones lasted mere minutes before failing. "That's impossible," Green protested. "Nothing can survive in the dead zone. The radiation levels alone." "Actually," Dr. Blue interrupted, her skin now pulsing with excitement, "that's not entirely true. There is one species known to survive radiation levels even higher than the dead zone." The chamber grew so quiet you could hear the gentle hum of the environmental systems. Council Leader Gray's eyes widened. "No," he said, "you can't be suggesting." "Yes," Dr. Blue projected a new image, a blue and green planet orbiting the yellow star. Earth, home of the humans, the Deathworlders. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Some representatives retreated into their protective chambers. Others began shouting protests. "Deathworlders, they're barely civilized. Their planet has active volcanoes, and they live near them. They evolved under constant radiation from their sun. They eat poison for pleasure." Council Leader Gray raised his hands for silence. "Dr. Blue, surely there must be another way. Humans are." He searched for the right word. "Unpredictable. Their planet has gravity 1.5 times stronger than any civilian council world. They've evolved to survive conditions we consider lethal. Their very movements could accidentally kill one of us." Dr. Blue's skin rippled with determination. "That's exactly why we need them. Look at these readings." She displayed data from the plague's point of origin. The radiation levels, the gravity fluctuations, they're almost identical to conditions on Earth. What's lethal to us is normal to them. She continued, her voice growing stronger. "Humans don't just survive these conditions, they thrive in them. Their bodies naturally resist radiation levels that would kill any of us. Their dense muscle structure, thick bones, and advanced repair systems make them perfect for investigating the dead zone. And their minds," Green challenged, "they're known for aggressive, primitive thinking." "Their primitive thinking might be exactly what we need," Dr. Blue countered. "They evolved solving problems on a world that was actively trying to kill them. Where we see impossible conditions, they see Tuesday." A few nervous laughs echoed through the chamber at her attempt at human humor. Council Leader Gray looked at the spreading red dots on the map. 6 billion lives lost already. How would we even approach them? The last diplomatic mission to Earth ended with the ambassador needing therapy after seeing humans exercise for fun. Dr. Blue's skin brightened with hope. "I have a candidate in mind, a human who's already worked in space, someone who might understand our hesitation while still being capable of helping." She projected a new image, a human in a spacesuit, standing on an asteroid. His name is Smith, and he might be our only option. The red dots continued to spread across the map as the Council faced its most difficult decision yet: trust their fate to a Deathworlder, or watch their civilization crumble. Smith was having a normal day on Mining Station 7, near Jupiter's orbit, when the alien message arrived. He had just finished his daily exercise routine, something he needed to maintain his strength in the lower gravity of space. The station's warning lights flashed blue, a color reserved for non-emergency alien contact. "Mr. Smith," the station's computer announced, "there's a transmission from the Galactic Council." He wiped the sweat from his forehead and grabbed a floating water pouch. "Play it." The screen showed a beautiful alien with blue, glowing skin. Smith recognized her species as Lumini from his space training. "Mr. Smith, I am Dr. Blue of the Galactic Council. We need your help. Humanity's help. We're facing a crisis that only a Deathworlder, only a human can solve." Smith raised an eyebrow. Even after 10 years of Earth, knowing about aliens, most Council species still avoided humans. They thought Earth was too dangerous, its people too strong and unpredictable. For them to ask for help, something must be very wrong. "I'm listening," he said, trying to move slowly so he wouldn't startle the alien with typical human speed. 3 days later, Smith stood in an observation room on the Council station, watching the alien officials argue about his presence. The room was divided into different environmental sections, some filled with special gases, others with liquid, each suited to different alien species. Smith stood in a reinforced section designed for heavy gravity species. Dr. Blue floated in her section, defending him. "Look at his records. He's worked in radiation zones that would kill any of us. He's survived 3 space accidents that should have been fatal. He even helped repair a reactor leak without full protection here." "That's exactly what worries us." Council member Green's plant-like form waved in agitation. "No safe species should be able to do those things. It's unnatural." Smith held back a laugh. To him, it was the aliens who seemed strange, so light and fragile that a friendly pat on the back could break their bones. But he remained quiet, remembering his diplomatic training. "Let them get used to you slowly." Dr. Blue continued showing data from Smith's space record. "He's perfect for this mission. Experience in dangerous environments, engineering knowledge, and most importantly, he's worked with Council species before without any accidents." "Without accidents?" Another Council member spoke up. "What about the incident on Europa Station?" Smith finally spoke, keeping his voice soft. "You mean when I caught the falling cargo container? The one that would have crushed 3 Council workers?" The room went quiet. They'd forgotten that human hearing was better than theirs. "Yes," he continued, still speaking gently. "I broke protocol by moving at full human speed. And yes, I scared everyone by lifting something that heavy. But nobody died." Dr. Blue's skin pulsed with bright colors, a sign of excitement. "That's exactly why we need you. The quantum plague is spreading through radiation zones we can't even enter. We need someone who can survive there. Someone strong enough to deploy equipment in high-gravity areas." Smith looked at the hologram showing dead worlds. "How many have died?" 6 billion, Council Leader Gray answered quietly. "And we lose more every day." Smith nodded slowly. He understood their fear of humans. Earth must seem like a nightmare to them. Constant earthquakes, storms, dangerous animals, and humans who grew strong by fighting against it all. But right now, they needed that strength. "I'll help," he said, "but I have 2 conditions." The Council members tensed. What would this Deathworlder demand? "First, stop treating me like I might break your station. I know my strength, and I know how to be careful. Second," he pointed at the plague data, "tell me everything. No holding back information because you think it might be too complex for a primitive species." Dr. Blue translated for the Council, who discussed among themselves in their musical languages. Finally, Council Leader Gray spoke. "Agreed," he said. Though we request you limit your maximum speed and strength to 40% unless there's an emergency. Smith smiled, careful not to show his teeth, another thing that scared Council species. Deal. Now show me what we're fighting. As Dr. Blue began the briefing, Smith couldn't help but notice how the other aliens kept their distance. He would prove to them that humanity's strength wasn't something to fear. It was something that might just save them all. The first morning on the Council station started with screams. Smith had decided to jog in the station's main corridor to maintain his Earth-level fitness. He didn't expect that his normal running speed would cause such panic. By the stars, it's charging. An alien technician pressed himself against the wall, his tentacles curling in fear. Smith stopped immediately, remembering that to their eyes, a jogging human looked like a charging predator. "Sorry," he said, holding up his hands. "Just exercising. I'll find a quieter place." Dr. Blue found him later in his reinforced quarters, lifting weights. Her skin flickered between shades of blue as she watched him press what would be a small vehicle's weight to Council species. "Perhaps we should discuss proper station behavior," she said carefully. Smith set down the weights with a thud that made the nearby sensors flash warnings. "I'm trying to be careful, but I need to exercise. On Earth, we lose muscle quickly if we don't. The concept of voluntarily stressing your body is difficult for Council species to understand," Dr. Blue explained. "We evolved seeking comfort and safety. You evolved by constantly challenging yourselves." Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert. In the station's science lab, a containment unit had failed. As they rushed to the scene, they found Council Leader Gray organizing an evacuation. "The gravity regulators are malfunctioning," Gray explained, his silver skin pale with worry. "It's rising to almost Earth levels. Nobody can get close enough to fix it." Smith looked through the lab's window. Inside, delicate equipment was being crushed under the increasing gravity. More importantly, the samples of the quantum plague they were studying might break free. "I'm going in," he said. "But the gravity," Dr. Blue started, "is about 90% of Earth's normal gravity," Smith finished. "I'll be fine. Just tell me what needs fixing." The aliens watched in amazement as Smith walked normally into conditions that would cripple their strongest species. He reached the control panel and began repairs while carrying on a casual conversation through the comm system. "You know," he said while reconnecting heavy cables with his bare hands, "this is like a light workout day for me. Back home, I used to go hiking in the mountains. Now that's a real gravity challenge, especially with a backpack." The aliens listening couldn't decide what was more terrifying, that he could function in such conditions, or that he considered it easy. After fixing the gravity regulators, Smith found himself surrounded by curious Council scientists. Their fear had temporarily given way to fascination. "You didn't even wear an exosuit," one whispered. "Is it true that humans live in areas with regular earthquakes?" Another asked. "Do you really eat capsaicin for pleasure?" A third wondered. Smith answered their questions patiently, realizing this was the first time many of them had talked to a human up close. He carefully pulled out his tablet to show them pictures of Earth, moving in slow motion to avoid startling them. "This is my hometown," he said, showing a city near mountains. "And yes, we get earthquakes. We build our structures to handle them. Those mountains, I climb them for fun." Dr. Blue's skin pulsed with understanding. "Now I see why the Council was wrong about humans. We saw your strength and endurance as threatening, but they're not just for destruction. You use them to protect and help others too." Smith nodded. "On Earth, being strong means being responsible. Yes, I could accidentally break most things on this station. That's exactly why I'm always careful. It's like," he thought for a moment, "like how you scientists handle delicate instruments. You have the knowledge to make dangerous things, but you choose to make helpful things instead." The gathered aliens murmured in agreement. Slowly, they were beginning to see that human physical capabilities weren't inherently scary. They were tools, like any other. A new alarm broke their discussion. The quantum play had just claimed another world. "Time to put human capabilities to real use," Smith said, his expression serious. "Show me the latest data. All of it. No more holding back because you think it might be too much for me." Earth faces challenges head-on. It's how we survive. Looking at the determination on the human's face, the council species began to hope. Perhaps a Deathworlder's direct approach was exactly what they needed to solve this crisis. The holographic display filled the science lab with a ghostly blue light as Smith studied the played data. After 3 days of constant work, he noticed something others had missed. Years of surviving on Earth, where hidden dangers could mean death, had trained humans to see patterns differently. "Play it again," he told the computer. "But this time, show all wavelengths humans can see." The display changed, showing new colors in the radiation spectrum. Dr. Blue floated nearby, her skin dimmed with tiredness. "We've studied these patterns for months," she said. "Our best computers found nothing." Smith stood up suddenly, making several nearby aliens jump. "That's the problem. You're looking for complex answers. On Earth, the deadliest things are often simple." He pointed to the display. "Look here. Every time the plague hits a planet, there's a flash of radiation that matches exactly what we find in the dead zone. Not similar, exact, down to the smallest detail." Dr. Blue's skin brightened with interest. "But that's impossible. Radiation patterns always have small variations. Unless they're artificial," Smith said, "like a signature or a weapon." The room went silent. Council Leader Gray, who had been quietly observing, moved closer. "A weapon? From whom?" Smith manipulated the display with practiced ease. His time on the station had taught him to move more slowly, but his mind still worked at full human speed. "The dead zone wasn't always dead, was it?" he asked. "What was there before?" Dr. Blue checked the ancient records. "An advanced civilization called the Ancestors. They vanished 50,000 years ago. We assumed they destroyed themselves with their experiments." Smith shook his head. "No. Look at these energy patterns. They're not random destruction. They're targeted. The plague isn't attacking randomly. It's looking for specific types of technology, advanced technology, like what the Ancestors had." He brought up a new display, showing the path of destroyed worlds. "It's not spreading like a normal plague. It's following a pattern, taking out the most advanced worlds first. Just like what?" Gray asked. "Like an immune system," Smith said. "On Earth, when our bodies detect something foreign, our immune system attacks it. This plague is acting the same way. It's targeting civilizations that reach a certain level of advancement." Dr. Blue's skin pulsed with rapid color changes, her species' version of excitement. "The Ancestors didn't destroy themselves. They created this as a defense system. But against what?" Smith walked to another display, his footsteps heavy in the station's artificial gravity. "That's not the important question right now. The important thing is, this isn't a random plague. It's a program, and programs can be hacked." He pulled up data from his own suit's sensors from their last probe into the dead zone. "See these radiation patterns? They're like a code. The plague isn't killing worlds randomly. It's following instructions written in radiation." Council Member Green, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "If it's a program, why haven't our computers detected this?" Smith smiled. "Because you're looking for something too complex. On Earth, we learned the hard way that nature's deadliest weapons are usually simple. Viruses, bacteria, basic things that evolve and adapt. This plague works the same way." He pointed to his latest scans. "The radiation isn't just random energy. It's carrying information, like a computer program written in radiation instead of code. And if we can understand the language, we can change the instructions." Dr. Blue finished, her skin glowing brightly with hope. Smith nodded. "Exactly. But to do that, we need to go into the dead zone, to the source. And this time, we need to stay long enough to decode it. The council members looked at each other nervously. The dead zone's radiation levels were lethal to their species in minutes. How long would you need? Gray asked. Smith looked at the data again. At least 24 hours, maybe more. That's impossible. Green protested. Even our best shielded probes only last minutes there. Smith stood straight, his full height making him tower over the aliens. Good thing I'm not a probe then. Humans evolved under constant radiation from our sun. We can handle more than you think, especially if we prepare properly. Dr. Blue moved closer to him, her glow steady and determined. What do you need? Smith looked at the display showing more worlds falling to the plague. Everything you know about radiation shielding and all the coffee you can spare. We've got a program to hack. The council species watched the human begin his preparations, finally understanding why evolution on a death world might be an advantage after all. The council's emergency meeting chamber was packed as Smith presented his plan. The holographic displays showed Earth's bacteria swimming across the screen. Tiny organisms that could survive in the most extreme conditions. You want to do what? Council member Green's leaves trembled in shock. Introduce more Deathworld elements into space. Smith stood calmly, having expected this reaction. These are extremophiles, bacteria from Earth's most radioactive places. They don't just survive radiation. They eat it, turn it into something harmless. Dr. Blue floated closer to the display, her skin shifting with fascination. Like the bacteria found near Earth's nuclear accidents. Exactly, Smith nodded. But these are special ones from deep underground, near uranium deposits. They've evolved over millions of years to feed on radiation. And better yet, they'd reproduce faster when exposed to more of it. Council leader Gray's silver skin rippled with concern. You want to fight one plague with another? Not exactly. Smith pulled up new images. These bacteria aren't harmful to living things. They only eat radiation. Think of them as cleanup crews. The quantum plague uses radiation to carry its instructions. These bacteria will eat those instructions. The council chamber erupted in worried whispers. Dr. Blue raised her hands for silence. Let him finish. This might be our only option. Smith touched a control, and the display showed his calculations. The plague is just a program written in radiation. These bacteria will scramble that program by eating the radiation patterns. It's like, he thought for a moment, like using sound to cancel out other sound. But what if these bacteria evolve? Become dangerous? Green asked. Smith smiled. That's the clever part. These bacteria can only survive in high radiation zones. No radiation, no food. They die. They can't spread to normal space any more than you could survive on Earth without protection. Dr. Blue's skin pulsed with excitement. And the dead zone, with its high radiation, will become a lot less dead, Smith said. These bacteria will clean it up over time. Maybe even make it safe enough for Council species to explore someday. Council leader Gray studied the data carefully. How do you know this will work? Smith pulled up one final display, a simulation showing the bacteria at work, because we've already tested it in the lab. Remember that containment breach 3 days ago? We exposed some samples to these bacteria. The plague's radiation patterns disappeared completely. The council members watched the simulation in silence. The bacteria, shown in green, devoured the red patterns of plague radiation, leaving clean space behind. Of course, Smith added, lab tests are one thing. To really stop the plague, we need to introduce the bacteria at its source, in the dead zone, where the radiation levels are highest, Dr. Blue said quietly. Where the plague is strongest, Smith agreed, and where we'll need to stay long enough to make sure the bacteria take hold. Green's leaves drooped. No council species could survive that long in the dead zone. No, Smith said, but I can. Humans evolved with natural radiation shielding in our cells. With proper protection, I can survive long enough to seed the bacteria and monitor their growth. Dr. Blue's skin darkened with worry. Even for a human, the radiation levels there are dangerous. Smith nodded. Dangerous, yes. Lethal, no. Not if we're careful. And this is our best chance to stop the plague before it kills more worlds. Council Leader Gray rose slowly. As much as the idea of using Earth bacteria frightens us, I see no other choice. The plague has already destroyed too many worlds. We must act. One by one, the council members voted. Some quickly, some hesitantly, but in the end, the decision was unanimous. They would try Smith's plan. As the meeting ended, Dr. Blue approached Smith. You knew they would fear using anything from Earth, she said. That's why you tested it first, isn't it? Smith smiled. On Earth, actions speak louder than words. Showing that it works is better than just saying it will. They looked out a viewport at the stars, where another world had just gone dark. Let's hope those actions speak loud enough, Dr. Blue said softly. Smith checked his radiation suit one last time. They will. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best, even if they come from a death world. The ship's engines hummed quietly as they approached the dead zone. Smith sat in the reinforced pilot's seat, designed specially to handle his weight. Dr. Blue floated in her protective chamber nearby, monitoring his vital signs. Last radiation check, Smith said, looking at his instruments. We're already at levels that would kill most council species. Dr. Blue's skin flickered nervously. And we're still at the edge. Are you feeling any effects? Nothing unusual, Smith replied, checking his radiation suit. In his pack, special containers held the Earth bacteria, ready to be released. Though I can taste metal in my mouth, that's normal for high radiation. The ship's computer chimed a warning. Ahead of them, space itself seemed to shimmer with deadly energy. This was the heart of the dead zone, where the quantum plague had first appeared. Radiation levels are now at 200 times Council safety limits, the computer announced. Dr. Blue's chamber began automatically retreating to the shielded back section of the ship. This is as far as I can go. Any further and even our best shielding won't protect me. Smith nodded, understanding. Keep the ship ready. If something goes wrong, get yourself back to the station. Don't wait for me. That won't be necessary, she said, trying to sound confident despite her rapidly changing skin colors. The suit will protect you. Smith checked his helmet seals one last time. The suit was the best the Council could make, reinforced with additional shielding. He had designed himself based on Earth technology. It would help, but ultimately, his own body would need to handle most of the radiation. Beginning approach, he announced, guiding the ship deeper into the dead zone. The instruments started showing errors. The radiation was affecting them. But Smith kept going, navigating by sight and instinct. Finally, they'd reached the source, a massive structure floating in space, barely visible through the radiation haze. Ancient technology still running after 50,000 years. Starting EVA, Smith said, moving towards the airlock. If my calculations are right, the bacteria should start working as soon as they contact the radiation field. He pushed off from the ship, his thrusters guiding him towards the structure. The radiation levels here were beyond anything the Council had ever recorded. Even his reinforced instruments were failing. The first warning came 10 minutes in. Suit radiation shielding at 60% and dropping, the computer announced. Expected, Smith grunted, reaching the structure's surface. He could feel the radiation now, a tingling sensation throughout his body. On Earth, this would be fatal within hours. But humans had evolved better radiation resistance than any Council species. He began placing the bacterial containers at strategic points, each one programmed to open and release its contents in sequence. The bacteria would need time to multiply and spread, creating a chain reaction that would eat away at the plague's radiation patterns. Suit shielding at 40%, the computer warned. Smith kept working. His movements were getting slower, but he refused to rush. Each container had to be placed perfectly for the plan to work. 30 minutes exposure, Dr. Blue's voice came through the radio. "Smith, your radiation dose is approaching dangerous levels." "Almost done," he said, placing the last container. Already, he could see the first signs of the bacteria working, small areas where the radiation shimmer was less intense. Suit shielding at 20%. Smith turned back toward the ship, but his movements were sluggish. The radiation was affecting him more than he'd expected. Each push towards the ship felt like swimming through thick mud. "Smith," Dr. Blue's voice was urgent. "Your vital signs are dropping. Keep the ship steady," he managed to say. The ship seemed so far away now. His vision was starting to blur. Just when it seemed he wouldn't make it, he felt the ship's tractor beam block onto him. Dr. Blue had taken initiative, using the emergency systems to pull him in. As the airlock closed behind him, Smith looked out at the ancient structure. Where the bacteria had been released, the deadly radiation was already noticeably dimmer. The solution was working. "Medical bay, now," Dr. Blue ordered as soon as he was inside. "And Smith, next time you decide to almost die saving everyone, give us a little warning." Despite his exhaustion, Smith smiled. "Where's the fun in that?" he said, before finally allowing himself to pass out. The last thing he saw was the dead zone beginning to change, as Earth's toughest bacteria went to work cleaning up space's deadliest region. 3 weeks after the mission to the dead zone, Smith stood before the Galactic Council again. This time, he wasn't in a reinforced section. The council members had insisted he join them in the main chamber. His radiation burns had healed thanks to both human healing abilities and council medical technology. "The reports are confirmed," Council Leader Gray announced, his silver skin glowing with joy. "The quantum plague has stopped spreading. The dead zone's radiation levels have dropped by 60% and continue to fall." The chamber erupted in celebration. Different species showed happiness in their own ways. Some glowed, others changed colors, and a few released pleasant scents into their environmental chambers. Dr. Blue floated next to Smith, her skin pulsing with bright patterns. "The bacteria are performing better than expected. They're not just stopping the plague. They're making the entire dead zone safer." Smith nodded, watching the latest scans. Where deadly radiation once filled space, clear zones were appearing. The Earth bacteria were spreading steadily, consuming the radiation that had powered the ancient weapon. "More importantly," he said, "we found no sign of the plague appearing anywhere else. Once we broke its connection to the source, it couldn't spread." Council Member Green, who had once feared everything from Earth, moved his environmental chamber closer to Smith. "We owe you an apology," he said. "We called your world a death world, your species dangerous. We were wrong." Smith smiled. "No, you were right. Earth is dangerous. Humans are dangerous, but that's exactly why we were able to help." He brought up an image of Earth on the main display. "See these regions?" He pointed to several spots. "Nuclear accidents, radiation zones, places where most species would die. But there, life adapted. Bacteria evolved to eat radiation. Plants learned to grow in poison. Life found a way. Just as humans found a way to survive there," Dr. Blue added. "Exactly," Smith said. "Everything that made us scary to you, our strength, our endurance, our ability to survive radiation, came from living on a world that challenged us. We didn't become strong to destroy. We became strong to survive." Council Leader Gray raised his hands for silence. "The Council has made a decision. We are establishing a permanent human advisory position. Your perspective, your Deathworld perspective, might be exactly what we need." Smith looked surprised. "You want more humans involved in Council matters?" "Yes," Gray confirmed. "Your different way of thinking, your direct approach to problems. They're valuable. You see solutions we miss because our evolution took a different path." Dr. Blue's skin rippled with amusement, "Though perhaps we should create some exercise areas for them first." to avoid any more running in corridors incidents. The chamber filled with gentle laughter, including Smith's. The fear that had once filled the aliens at human movements was gone, replaced by understanding. "There's something else," Smith said, turning serious. "The Ancestors' weapon. It was designed to prevent civilizations from becoming too advanced. We need to understand why. What were they afraid of?" "A mystery for another day," Gray said, "but one we'll solve together. The Council has also approved full diplomatic relations with Earth. Your people's strength no longer frightens us. It reassures us." Smith looked around the chamber, remembering the fear he'd seen when he first arrived. Now those same aliens were celebrating a solution that came from Earth's most extreme environments. "Maybe that's the lesson here," he said. "Every world, even a death world, has something to teach us. Every species, even a dangerous one, has something to offer." Dr. Blue touched his arm with a glowing tentacle, a gesture that would have terrified her 3 weeks ago. "And sometimes, the most dangerous path is the only path to survival." As Smith looked out of the Council chamber, he saw the future changing. Humans and Council species working together, each bringing their own strengths. His primitive death world had provided the key to saving advanced civilizations. "So," he said with a smile, "who's ready to learn more about Earth's extreme environments? I know some lovely volcanic regions perfect for your next vacation." The chamber filled with laughter again, but this time it wasn't nervous. The Council species had learned an important truth. Sometimes the most frightening thing in the universe might be exactly what you need to survive. And somewhere in the dead zone, tiny bacteria from Earth continued their work, turning one of space's deadliest regions into something new, proof that life, even from a death world, could bring positive change to the galaxy.